Honestly, friend, I tried to write an intro for this one, but there's just so many layers to it. It's like an ogre. And I'm just super stoked to get to share this one with you. This may be my best story yet. So, hello and welcome to Torches, Yoga and Mindfulness. I'm Lauren, and while yes, I am a yoga coach and mindfulness coach, today I will be your storyteller, your guide through the stillness in the dark. In this story, we follow six old college friends reuniting, all burning out in their own way, and Celeste, who wants to save them. So, grab a snack, sit back, and let me tell you a tale. Celeste sat cross-legged on her oversized pompous chair, fingers dancing over her laptop keyboard. Beads, crystals, and hanging charms swayed in a light breeze from a cracked window. Rainbows of colors danced across the walls from sun catchers hanging about. Her apartment was a riot of Pier 1 imports, macrame, dried flowers, and incense. It smelled like patchouli and ambition. She typed quickly, sending emails to her old college friends, saying, "Pack a bag. We're going away. All expenses paid. 1 week, tropical island." She paused, smiling at herself. In college, she had been the life of the party. Now she was the boho's spiritual guide, barefoot in her apartment, believing in enlightenment and reality shifts. Her friends didn't know whether to laugh or roll their eyes, but they loved and trusted her all the same. She had planned everything for them. Each reply pinged back. Steve, the workaholic, Carol, the mom, Aaron, fresh out of his third rehab stint, Sandra, the philanthropist, Chad, the motorcycle guy, and Roderick, the gold digger, on his fourth divorce and on the hunt for wife number 5. All were reluctantly eager. Celeste imagined them already halfway through packing, unaware of what awaited them. At the airport, the reunion was cheerful but stiff. Laughter and clinking glasses masked the years of distance. The flight to the island included a transfer, first-class comfort replaced by a 12-seater plane. They joked, calling the pilot a tractor driver and contemplating if he would be able to keep them up in the air. When they landed, the dirt runway and ancient taxi greeted them like a warning in disguise. English was sparse, and smiles were too. They had 2 rooms reserved at a local hostel. The owner separated them into one for the boys and one for the girls. After showing them to their rooms, he gave them some general directions to a diner and a bar nearby. The friends dispersed to their rooms to unpack and dress for a night on the town, which pretty much included the bar and the diner, from the looks of it. Carol, the mother, had packed more pictures of her children than clothes. Aaron, the addict, tried to conceal the extracurricular supplies hidden in his bag. Sandra, the giver, felt a pang of guilt as she held her gold earrings, a gift from her former boss, now imprisoned for embezzlement. Memories of late-night thrills and forbidden love made the earrings feel heavier than they should have in her hand. She buried them deep in her luggage. Celeste bounced around, chattering about shifting timelines and awakenings, announcing that they would begin with enlightenment. "We're going to find our centers, come back transformed, grounded, and awakened," she said. The others smiled politely, secretly mocking, but secretly curious. All freshened up, the friends gathered in the lobby of the hostel. Chad's voice boomed over their chatter, declaring they would hit the diner first for some sustenance, then to the bar for some shots. "No, no, 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 no," Celeste replied. "First, we are stopping by a cute little oracle shop I saw on the way in." Aaron and Roderick joked that they were going to get cursed, but for Celeste, they would give it a try. The shop smelled of incense and dust. Candles flickered against the walls that were crowded with charms. A short, round woman emerged from behind a beaded curtain. "Oh, I see a group of young souls before me looking for an escape," she said, eyes unblinking. Roderick scoffed. "Wow, sorcery! How'd you guess that a group of tourists wanted to escape?" Celeste shot him a glare, sharp enough to cut glass. He muttered a half apology, ending snidely with, "Next she's going to tell us we'll all die one day." Celeste turned to the woman and asked if she would read for each of them. The friends took a seat in the sitting room while one at a time they disappeared behind the beaded curtain for a few minutes to get their private readings. The oracle drew 3 tarot cards for each. The death card appeared in every reading, though the friends laughed nervously, trying to dismiss it, telling themselves it was just part of the theatrics to give tourists what they want. With a little more unease than when they entered the shop, the friends headed out. As they moved towards the door, the oracle's warning seemed to echo behind them. Be present. Do not wander at night. Follow these rules, for the island takes those who do not. It was only late afternoon, the sunbeams hitting the shops of the town from an angle, making the shadows stretch long. They dined, laughed, drank, and talked about the old days mostly. Carol tried relentlessly to bring photos of the kids and their latest accomplishments. Sandra would plug in her good deeds anywhere in the conversation she could. And Steve was checking his smartwatch and his satellite phone every 10 minutes. The bartender called last call at 6:45. Confused, they asked why. There is no nightlife here, he said. Go back to your rooms, sleep, and rest to explore the beauty of our island tomorrow. They paid their tab and stepped out into the warm evening air. Chad, ever the ringleader, refused. No way, an entire island shuts down at 7. Let's see the night. The friends walked down the street, laughing and sharing stories old and new. The sun slowly dipped behind the small buildings of the town. Steve excused himself, saying, I'll catch up with you in a minute. I needed to make a call. He wandered down a short side street to the beach. Phone pressed to his ear, he aimlessly strolled along the waterline, the water lapping up to his knees. He was lost in his conversation when, from in the water, something sharp dug into his leg out of nowhere. As the pain shot up his calf, he let out a scream. Not far away, the others heard him and came rushing to the beach, but it was too late. As they ran across the sand, they saw large tentacles reaching up out of the water, wrapping around Steve and pulling him in. Too terrified to go into the water with that monster, they screamed for him from the shore. The water returned to calm, but panic and fear rose in the friends. Sandra, panicking, rambled on about needing aid, needing to start a task force through her foundation. Roderick tried to assert order, barking directions, saying they should split the group and some head back to the hostel and some find a police station. Amongst all their chaos, Carol noticed movement in the sand. Something immense underneath the sand headed quickly towards them. This thing began circling, herding them in. They huddled together, trying to decide what to do, and wondering if this was the same thing that had taken Steve. They knew time was running out. With each pass, the thing under the sand moved closer and closer. Consumed by terror, Sandra tried to make a run for the street, but she only made it 2 steps before a giant eel-like creature the size of a bus burst through the sand, lunging for Sandra and taking her back to the depths of its labyrinth of tunnels below. The friends quickly started digging in the place where she disappeared, frantic and panicked. But about 20 yards away, the sand started to move again. Aaron wasn't sticking around for round 2. He bolted towards the rocky cliffs. The rest followed, panicked and unsure. Aaron spotted a cave, hoping it will give them a reprieve and a sense of cover so that they can come up with a plan on how to get out of here. So he calls the others over. They catch their breaths and all start checking their phones for a signal, but there's none. There hasn't been a signal since they got off the first plane. They were all in shock. Roderick broke the silence first. This is what the oracle said would happen. They all dismissed him. They don't believe this is an occult type thing. There must have been a shark that got Steve and some sand eel creature that got Sandra. That's why the locals stay in at night. No, he protests. She said we would meet our demise. For me, she pulled the 5 of coins, an upside down queen of coins, and a card with death on it. She said that I had a path of selfish love and something about me being blinded to what's real and it would lead to my death. I overheard Steve's reading too. He got a full card, an upside down Eight of Pentacles, and a death card. She told him he was obsessed with work and that he would drown in his work. And look what happened to him. Chad and Carol quietly murmured. They had seen the death card in their readings as well. Aaron shared that the oracle had also pulled the death card for his, along with the devil and Five of Swords, with the same grim warning. They all stood there, taking in this information, trying to figure out what it could mean and what they needed to do with it. From the entrance of the cave, they heard movement and a low growl starting up. They were still, silently watching. Over the rocks came a large cat. It looked like a panther, but it was monstrous, like the size of a Prius. Slowly they backed into the cave. The cat didn't seem to want to come in, but stayed pacing the opening, sniffing the air and snarling. Roderick called them all to follow, to move deeper into the cave to see if there was another way out. Celeste questioned him if this was really a safe option. Now Roderick cut her the same tense glare she had given him at the oracle shop and said, "You're welcome to take your chances with the cat from hell back there, but I'm at least going to see if there's another way out of here." Silence fell over the group, tension and shock setting in. Single file, they made their way through the cave, phone lights pointed down at their feet, following Roderick's path. He was about 20 yards ahead of everyone else when he yelled out, "Hey, I see light up here. We got a way out." He quickened his pace, bouncing along the boulders. They all looked up from their feet, feeling a bit relieved. But Roderick suddenly stopped in his tracks. It sounded like he was choking. He swiveled around, hands clasped around his throat. Chad, Aaron, Celeste, and Carol getting one last look at their friend, discolored, eyes bulging, and white foam bubbling at his lips. Then he collapsed on the rocky floor. Celeste shrieked, and Carol started to rush towards him, but Aaron caught her arm. "It's toxic gas. Don't get any closer," he said. Chad retorted, "Oh, Jesus, what do you know about toxic gas other than huffing petrol in your mom's garage? We have to get to that exit." Aaron, hurt by the words, but also feeling that they were what he deserved, meekly replied, "I was a scout. We spent a lot of time in caves and spelunking. Gases come up from beneath and can settle in caverns like this. And there isn't even a way out. Look around. Shine your lights on the walls." They all did, and the cave glittered, reflecting their lights. Ahead where Roderick had thought was an exit, a large boulder reflected their light back like it had eyes to the outside world. "It's Micah. That's not light from the outside. It was the reflection of his flashlight," Aaron said. Celeste whispered the words the oracle had given Roderick, blinded and led to his death. They all take a few steps backwards, but know that the cat could still be waiting at the entrance for them. "The oxygen must be thin in here," Aaron started. "Does anyone else feel a little nauseous or lightheaded?" They all agreed that they do. "We need to head back to the entrance," he said with a sigh of defeat. Cautiously, they moved back along their path to the mouth of the cave. As they approached the opening, Chad surveys the mouth of the cave, searching for signs of the predator. There is no more growling and no noticeable movement. With no other choice and hoping the panther has moved on, the friends leave the cave. Knowing they can't go back over the sandy beach, they have to traverse the boulders and over the cliffside. Terrified and tired, they make their way over the rocks and into mangroves that separated the beach from the town. They had set out, a group of 7, for a night of laid-back fun, and were now 4 friends, horrified, and just hoping to make it through the night. Aaron was at the rear. He knew that others' minds must be spiraling like his was, but his thoughts kept getting interrupted by a rustling in the brush behind him. Occasionally he would swear he heard the same low growls they had heard in the cave. They quietly trudged through the underbrush and sticky mud. Suddenly, the silence was broken by a sharp squeal from Carol. Chad, Celeste, and Aaron rushed to where she had been in the line in the middle of their pack. She was up to her waist in the mud, panicking and clawing at any plants she could reach, and quickly sinking deeper. Chad tried to find large sticks or palm prongs to reach her, but nothing was strong enough. Aaron kept trying to tell her to calm down to slow her sinking, but the quicksand had its grip on her. She was up to her chin now. The weight of the pit already made her breath shallow. She tried futilely to reach her arms out like a swimmer, but with each stroke, she sunk deeper and deeper into the suffocating isolation. Within one beat, the scene went from chaos and screams of panic to utter silence, as Chad, Celeste, and Aaron went silent too, like the air had been ripped from their lungs, right along with Carol's. The remaining three couldn't wrap their heads around what was happening to them. It was like the island was picking them off one by one. The oracle's words rang in their ears. Celeste was sobbing. The guilt was setting in with the terror of the night. She had brought them here. She had asked them all to come. She kept hearing the same thought ring in her head, that this was no one's fault but hers. Aaron was shutting down, trying to block everything out, trying to deny that this present moment even existed. But Chad, driven by the fear of what this island held, wanted nothing more than to get back on that crop duster and head home. He snaps at the others. We have to move before we are next. Stay right behind me, only step where I do. As they collected themselves, the friends realize they're lost, not quite sure where they are on the island in relation to the town. And Aaron could still hear the panther stalking them from the palmettos. Chad points to the tree line ahead. There seems to be less ground cover to wade through, and declares a large oak about 100 yards away is their next target. With Chad leading the way, Celeste in the middle, and Aaron in the back, they push on. Only halfway to their tree marker, Aaron heard the cat starting up again. This time, it was closer. He tried to convince himself it was just his nerves, and he was just hearing things, until he realized Celeste was hearing it too. With each low growl, she would soften her step and turn her ear a little more towards the sound to better make it out. He encouraged her to keep moving and quicken her pace, but he feared it was too late. Though he couldn't see it through the palms, he could hear it just feet away from them. He calls to Chad to halt. Chad's fear and frustration were now boiling over anger. He said they have to keep moving together. Aaron protests, saying that he's going to make a break for the trees and divert and distract the cat. Celeste cried out for them to stay together, but Aaron had already made up his mind. He knew this panther was going to take one of them tonight, and he just knew it was here for him. He bolted across the mangrove, and as planned, the ferocious cat took pursuit. Moments later, Chad and Celeste, still standing in the same spot, hear the roars of the beast and Aaron's screams of pain. Celeste buried her head in Chad's embrace. He pulls her along, pushing on to the large oak. As Chad and Celeste approach the tree line, they start to see the town's lights flickering through the branches. Moving slowly and quietly, they reach the grove of trees and make it through to the other side. They come out behind a row of buildings and finally to the street. But the town didn't bring them a sense of relief. It was quickly apparent that, as the bartender had said, there was no nightlife. There wasn't a soul in sight, no sounds of people, traffic, music, or even a TV playing from any of the homes. They made their way back to the hostel. Celeste tried calling for help, but Chad had begun rummaging through the other's luggage. Shocked at what she was seeing, she asked him, "What the hell are you doing? We just watched 5 of our friends get picked off like bad fruits, and what? Now you're looking for a come up off of them?" He just laughed at her and said they won't be needing any of this anymore, as he pocketed Roderick's Rolex, the only thing that he had of value. He shoved Steve's laptop into his own bag and tucked Sandra's gold earrings into his pocket. Chad tossed Carol's bag to the side, having only brought some mom jeans and pictures of her family. Celeste fell back against the wall and crumpled on the floor like an old towel. She looked at Chad, trying to understand when he changed, when he stopped being the kind and chivalrous man that she had spent so much time with in high school and college. "We have to go to the police," she whispered. He looked at her on the ground and rolled his eyes, saying, "I'm getting my stuff and getting on the first plane that will take me off this godforsaken island." He snatched up Aaron's bag. "I know this junkie has something in here to take the edge off from this death trap of a vacation you brought us on." He opened the bag, and no sooner had he slid his hand down the side of it, he let out a booming howl and jerked his arm out, dropping the bag. Celeste, startled, got back to her feet and pressed herself as close to the wall as she could. Chad was holding his right wrist, and his hand was quickly swelling and changing colors. He dropped to the floor in agony, writhing as the pain shot up his arm. Celeste gingerly stepped around him and gently lifted the top of the suitcase. A scorpion, the size of her hand, scurried deeper into Aaron's belongings in the bag. Knowing the island was set to claim its next victim, and her own fate would shortly follow. With gentle tears rolling down her cheeks, she quietly sat on the floor next to Chad, taking him into her arms. He was sobbing, still holding his right wrist, the whole arm now swollen and purple, each breath more shallow than the last, and his heart racing so much that she could feel it beating through his ribs. She looked down at the man she once loved, snuck off to dark lecture halls with and in the stacks of the university library. His skin changed before her eyes, looking more like a rubber mask than the man she knew. As the pair sat there on the floor huddled together, the scorpion emerged, crawling up Chad's body and resting on her arm laid across his chest. Celeste steadied her breath, sitting as still as she could not to spook the poisonous pest. She sat perfectly still for what seemed like forever, not daring to move the slightest. She sat motionless as silence fell over her, as Chad's breath faded to nothing. Then the guilt started to set in again. She thought of how she had started all of this. She wanted to share her enlightenment with them so that they could live consciously of all the pain in the world and recognize their own fortunes. Whether she knew it or not, she needed them to transcend exactly as she did. She wanted them to see the world exactly as she did. She imagined them living together on a plot of land, caring for animals and each other alike. Tears came with the guilt, and she hadn't even realized she had fallen asleep. Celeste sat upright, alert and confused. She must have fallen asleep while holding Chad, but where was he now? She was back in the room she had been sharing with Sandra and Carol, in her own bed. She scanned the room, not recognizing anything other than her own belongings. She was alone. She jumped out of the bed, quickly pulled on her joggers and a t-shirt. She rushed down the stairs to the reception desk. Greeted by the same clerk as the afternoon before, she frantically starts in, "Where is Chad? My friends were hurt last night. We need to get to help and go back out there." The clerk's brow furrowed and he started checking his computer system, asking her, "Were you expecting them already? We don't have any other reservations today." Celeste presses on, "No, the 6 other people I came in with yesterday." Even more confused, the clerk shook his head, claiming, "Ma'am, you came in alone. Your reservation was just for 1 bed for a week, and we don't have anything else until Tuesday." She felt her heart jump to her throat. She turned and ran back up the stairs, back to her room. She hesitated for a moment, then turned to the door of the room that the boys had been in the night before. She frantically knocked, and a strange man answered, speaking Russian. She apologized, smiled, and went back to her room. Celeste felt like she was in a bad dream that she had woke up from only to find herself in another bad dream. She tore through her suitcase like it had an answer hidden in the pockets. Nothing but fringe and gems. She collected all of her belongings and hauled them downstairs back to the clerk's desk to check out and ask for directions to a police station. As she stepped out the front door, the warm morning sunlight hit her face, and just for that moment, it felt like she could breathe. That feeling was quickly chased away as the clerk's directions rang in her head. She took off walking, dragging her wheeled luggage behind her. The police station wasn't far from the hostel. As she approached the building, she started to second guess herself and if she had followed the directions correctly. The building was barely a step up from a shack, but as she peeked in the window, she could see an older gentleman in a uniform sitting behind a desk. She gave her account of the night's events, but the old man looked more annoyed by her visit than concerned over the grave story she had just shared. When she finally stopped rambling, the officer took a deep breath. Stretching back in his chair, he sighed and crossed his arms. He asked if she'd been taking any drugs, knowing that datura flower and its psychedelic lure drew in its fair share of tourists. She shook her head no. He asked how much she had had to drink, how much she normally drinks. Asked her if she was on any medications or if she had been going through a hard time like a breakup. She shook her head more vigorously, sobbing, "No, you're not listening to me. Why don't you believe me? The clerk at the hostel didn't believe me either. He acted like he never even saw them." The officer rose from his chair, placed a gentle hand on her shoulder, and calmly said, "You've just had too much to drink and must be tired. I think it's best that you head back on home. I'll give you a lift to the airport and they can help you sort out your flight." The air left her lungs, her ears started ringing, and she couldn't even process this. She slipped into a daze, only moving on autopilot. Everything passed in a muffled blur until she found herself sliding her key in her apartment door, the peeling paint telling her she was home. She opened the door to a dim, damp basement efficiency apartment, roaches scattering, furniture of decades past tenants of the building cluttered the space and the smell. The small space didn't have room for much. Her bed to the left, kitchen and a bathroom to the right, and a meditation cushion in the middle. She set her suitcase to the side, slipped on her AirPods, and turned on some 432 hertz frequency meditation music, and took a seat in lotus on her cushion. She closed her eyes, focused on her breath, dropped the tongue from the roof of her mouth, and drifted off. All right, friend. That's my story for you. If you want to break this down book club style, I would be more than happy to talk about all the layers and answer any of the questions in the comments section. Let me know what you think happened here. Was this a story of 7 friends on the verge of burnout, intending to take a spiritual retreat with a conspiracy, a town-wide cover-up? Or has Celeste slipped into some kind of spiritual psychosis? If you enjoyed this story, make sure you check out the others I have for you in the Stillness in the Dark series. Friend, thank you so much for sharing a piece of your day with me. Stay present, stay kind to yourself, and I will see you soon.